Good morning. Welcome to part 2 of our webinar series of Sell Smarter, Not Harder, Improving Your Wholesale Strategy. This is with Heather Frambach, who's a specialist in this area. She has lots of good experience that she can share with us today. Today, she will be focusing on case studies with a couple of you and to kind of dig deeper into the process of building up these relationships. And as a reminder, we do have part 1 of this webinar series recorded, and you can watch it anytime on AIM's YouTube channel. So if you need a link to that, feel free to reach out to me after the webinar. My email's at the end of the slide presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I didn't introduce myself. Most of you have met me before, but I'm Liana Orlandi. I work for AIM as the program grants manager. So I'm overseeing the webinar series that we're doing this year. So any questions anytime, reach out. Thank you all for joining us, and go ahead, Heather.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Liana. So welcome back, everybody. And thanks. I know everyone is here joining for part 1 also, which I felt like it was pretty fun. So thanks for coming back for part 2. So let's go over what we're going to cover today. I'll just do like a very brief recap of like about me. We'll recap some important bits of part 1, and that'll tee us up to go into like a more distilled version of what I'm calling the pitch checklist. And then we're going to dig into the case studies with Alicia from Beber, Almondmilk, and Bakri from Uhuru Foods and Pies. And then we'll just have some Q&A just to go over and summarize and pull out any insights that we'd like to. Okay, so super briefly again about me, my background's pretty eclectic in food systems, from nonprofit, farmers markets, some local government stuff, and then on the nonprofit side, I was mostly involved in farm to school and technical assistance to enhance local and regional procurement. And then my most recent experience is coming off of the buy side at both Blue Apron and Imperfect Foods, where I managed teams of buyers and mostly interacted with suppliers in terms of facilitating sales from them, developing products with them, etc. So a lot of my experience is informed by that direct buying experience. And then a little bit more recently, I've been working with kitchen table advisors as a value chain strategist, helping them develop their strategy to enhance connections, primarily for farmers in Northern California, to link them to wholesale buyers. And I'll be continuing that work all through next year. And then I also have a little side hustle doing some contract sourcing for institutions like universities, hospitals, and then I also do small business advising as well. Okay, so let's recap a little bit from part 1. Again, we covered a little bit of this before, but basically, like in terms of kitchen table advisors, long-term market access strategy, we're thinking about it along a spectrum of activities that we're calling, all in the realm of what we call value chain coordination. So essentially, you can focus on the short term, the tactical, which we're calling coach and support, on the sort of this middle ground, which is called innovate, where you're getting the buyer to engage with you on things like R&D or investments, or doing some experimental aggregation type strategies. And furthest along the spectrum is what we're calling organized, where that addresses more deeper political systemic change, getting more power on the side of farmers and food producers. So just to clarify again, these sort of wholesale tips and tricks that we've been covering in this mini series is more on the coach and support. So saying, okay, here's the system that we're in. What are the specific tactical things that farmers and food producers can do to increase their sales given the current system? And it is a wild one right now. Okay, so just to again, continue to contextualize before we dig into the pitch checklist, towards the end last time, it went over this things to assess about a buyer, which is basically you're assessing am I the right fit? Is this worth spending my energy on? And I talked about how you want to assess realistically the person in front of you and not just think about your own product or what you're selling, but think about are we going to mesh together? And some of the things that we can scan for and ask questions about and dig into is, how knowledgeable is this person? Are they super plugged into the local and regional food system scene? Are basically and that leads us to is my product going to resonate, right? Do they have defined sustainability or local targets? Is that something that I can use for leverage if I'm hyper local to them or medium local to them even? Do they have a lot of flexibility in decision making, or does everything have to go through this long corporate approval process? You know, like how nimble and flexible are they? Especially if you're wanting a direct relationship, but they're working a lot with, you know, very distributor based, their supply chains, that's going to be another barrier for you to navigate. Do they have the budget? If my price point is high, and I'm more premium, then maybe I need to really dig in and see if they can afford me before, you know, we kind of go on this long email and phone situation only to be told, no, you're too expensive at the end. And then, like, this is like something you just have to be honest with yourself about in terms of, you know, if this is like, if you're going after like a big fish and you know that they are maybe like a little touch and go with suppliers, like you want to get a sense for how long they hang on to supplier relationships. Do they kind of drop them if seasonally, or do they drop them if something isn't working out budget-wise for them? Or when they get in with someone, are they hanging on? Is it more like a marriage or a partnership long term? If you're going after someone who would represent, you know, more than 25% of your sales, you want to basically do your own risk management and see, like, is this someone that I'm going to, like, you know, invest in a lot with, or should I be careful and try to diversify a little bit more before going after a big fish like this? And then, you know, final one is like, if you're a Black owned business or a Latinx owned business and you're noticing that there's a lot of, you know, like in the marketplace, lots of trends about, hey, I want to source from BIPOC food producers. Or if you're noticing that someone's pivoting, saying, we want more local and regional. We're noticing, you know, like all these large supply chain issues, we want to be more resilient, and you're small and regional, then that is a good place to start the conversation as well. So these are all just basically like things you want to scan for overall fit, and then we can dial into that a little bit more specifically in this next part. So before we go into the case studies, let's distill this down super streamlined into what I'm calling the pitch checklist. So again, you want to play, you know, both the player, the person across from you, as I've been mentioning, and your own cards. So the three primary things you want to look into are, do I have the right product fit? Am I talking to the right person at the right time? And am I conveying the right information in the right amount? We went over the third point quite a bit last time when we talked about the length and the content of email and phone call communications and things like that. And I think that the first 2 points were just a more simple way of saying what we covered in the last slide or two, which is basically like, you know, are we going to be a match? Should we spend some time together figuring this out? So let's go into these in a little bit more detail. When we're thinking about product fit, you know, we can refer back to that slide I just went over, things to assess about a buyer. This one is a huge sticking point for me, or it has been in my career as a buyer. If someone is cold calling me and seems to have no sense of what I'm already selling, I'm already, you know, kind of turned off. Especially if it's something like, because being a little bit outside of what my assortment currently isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but I want to know that the person has some awareness of what I'm already selling. So when you're assessing for product fit, you want to know what your buyer's current assortment really looks like. What's their current product selection? Do they source a lot of a diversity of brand size? Are they only sourcing from large brands and you can kind of tell that they're getting everything from UNFI? Or does it seem like, even just scanning the store and doing a store walk, does it seem like they're getting some direct relationships, do they have a mix of distributors? You just get a sense for what their sourcing situation currently is. Does it seem like things are really stable and like the selection is always the same, or that things are coming in and out a lot? And again, this is just like, if someone indicated that they could see what else I was selling and was paying attention to it, that was a huge, huge, huge plus for me. And it meant that we're already going to start the conversation in a good place. And then, you know, going back to the distribution question, if you're seeking a direct relationship and the buyer is working with, like, you know, a lot more distributors, that's going to be something to figure out. But basically, like, just be honest with yourself. Do I have the capacity to do what this buyer prefers? Am I willing to jump on board with the distributor that they're working on, or can I be really creative with them? Am I ready to dig in on what's going to work for them? Second one, am I talking to the right person at the right time? We'll go into this with with Uhuru's case with Imperfect, but if you're talking to someone like a sustainability manager and not a buyer, we already know that it's going to be like, you know, you're going to go through the play a game of telephone to try to get to the right person. But you want to know, is the person in front of you the decision maker on bringing products in? And do they have to get approval from anyone? Is there a corporate approval process if you're going through, say, like a tech company's employee kitchen? Is there a purchasing threshold? For instance, we gave this example last time with some of like the Google kitchens, for instance, if they're buying less than $10,000 worth of product, they can buy it on a credit card, or they can set up a service level agreement instead of going through a huge approval process. So just get a sense of the thresholds, the decision-making power, et cetera. Timing is also huge. Towards the end of quarters or the end of years tends to be a difficult time, especially because, you know, thinking about things like e-commerce, sales tend to go down. In grocery retail, sales tend to go up, just because of the nature of how consumers buy. For employee kitchen, things like that, things go down. So just kind of be aware of the macro trends seasonally, which I know a lot of good suppliers already are. And then towards the end of quarters, the more corporate you get, the more type of, you know, evaluation projects or financial projects or, you know, other admin employees tend to be doing. So just be aware that that might be the case. So towards the beginning of a quarter, in my experience, is normally the best time to cold call me if I'm a buyer, but it might vary. So just something to be aware of. And then again, we touched on this, like I said last time, am I conveying the right information? After you've thought and done as much research as you can about the person across the table from you, you want to then target your information really carefully. So if you've realized that they have a small supplier mandate or a local or regional mandate, you want to emphasize that part. If you know that you may have maybe like a bulk product, but they really care about how their private label program packages it, you want to go up front with your co-packing capabilities. If you know that they have, you know, maybe like they have high sales and they think about their sales week to week, you want to emphasize shelf life and handling and things like that. If all else fails, the best thing you can do is just emphasize existing sales to other places, mention other places, especially if the numbers look good, and then just focus in on the projected value to the buyer. So again, don't go too long about your mission and product if you can help it, unless it's, you know, very killer information, and really emphasize existing sales elsewhere, projected growth to the buyer. And then again, if, you know, try not to get, you know, these long essay emails that'll get lost in the inbox vortex. Message like targeted, try to get on the phone, send a second email if you can, but don't overwhelm them. And then I'm going to skip this slide for now. We can come back to it. We went over this a little bit last time too. Okay, let's dig into the live case studies. We're going to start with Alicia, and then here's the intro questions that I'll have both of you guys do. Alicia, if you could just introduce yourself, and I'll ask you these kind of one at a time. What do you sell? Where do you currently sell, and what quantities? And what's your best-selling product number, MSRP for that?
So we sell fresh almond milk that is locally sourced. It is unpasteurized. It has no preservatives, no artificial additives. So it's a very fresh product with short shelf life. We do all of our delivery ourselves and within a limited area because of the short shelf life. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. And do you have multiple flavors, or is it just one primary SKU that you sell?
We do have multiple flavors. We sell in pints and quarts in glass bottles, which we think is one of our selling points. And we do seasonal flavors such as strawberry, pumpkin, horchata, almond nog. And then our regular flavors are chocolate, lavender, honey vanilla. We do 3 cold brew coffees. We do a co-branding with a company called Chico Chai, where we make a fresh almond milk chai, ready to drink beverage. I think that's everything.
That sounds delicious. Wow. And then what's the price point? I imagine the glass probably adds significant expense to the packaging, right?
It does. Our pints are $8 and our quarts are $14. We sell at about 20 farmers markets in the Northern California region, and we have, I would say, about 40 grocery stores that we're in currently. There are slightly better prices at the farmers markets. We just offer, some deals, discounts, punch cards, that kind of thing.
And what kind of shelf life? Is it like 10 days, 14 days, something like that?
It's 6.
6 days, okay.
6.
Yeah, that's pretty tight. So with the grocery stores, I imagine you're doing probably bi-weekly, maybe sometimes 3 times weekly deliveries?
Twice a week.
Okay, that makes sense. And then do you give credit for unsold products? Like I know a lot of grocery stores do that.
We do. We give credits for unsold products, and then we try to evaluate how many credits we've taken back from that grocery store, and then adjust the orders for that week. And we look at sales trends, if there's a big holiday coming up, or, for the farmers markets, if there's going to be bad weather or a holiday, we try to adjust the numbers based on that.
That makes sense. And then for your, for some of your, like your top retail accounts, how many units would you say you sell a week?
Oh, I would have to
look
that up to know, but I can tell you what some of our top accounts are, and that might give you some idea. We do really well at Sacramento Natural Foods. Mm-hmm. We're also in Nugget Markets, which is one of our biggest accounts, but our sales are not fantastic there. They're slower there. We do really well in the Good Earth Markets, which are both in Mill Valley and San Rafael. There's others, but those are some of our top sellers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what are your main challenges with getting new accounts? You mentioned last time, cold calls seem to get lost. Yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
Okay, so we can see based on our sales in stores like Sacramento Natural Foods and the Good Earth Markets that there is a target audience for us. We have this really high quality product that some people are going to be willing to pay a premium for, and we want more stores like that. We know there are more stores that are specialty stores where people are going to be, willing to pay for our quality, and it's hard to get those buyers at those stores to recognize that. I feel like if they could see what we're doing at Good Earth Market, where we're selling out 2 deliveries every week, they would say, yes, we want you. But it's hard to get them to understand that in the 2 sentences of time that I have their attention on the phone. Maybe 2 sentences, or maybe I've even got them on the phone.
Yeah. Interesting. And when you are calling and are they giving you a hard answer saying we don't do glass, or shelf life is too short? Are they giving you a primary reason, or is it just a flake?
It's kind of, it seems more like I'm a little too busy for this. I'm not really, not really interested. If they've seen our product in another store, or they've seen it at a farmer's market, they might say, oh yeah, you're the guys in glass. You're the guys with the fresh product, because no one else is really doing a product as fresh as ours. Everyone's got preservatives or has pasteurization.
Yeah.
So if they've seen or heard of us before, they might take a moment to ask a few more questions, but a lot of times I'll get deferred to email, and that sounds just kind of like they're putting me off. They're saying, just send me an email. So then I try to send a lot of information in the email, here's everything you need to know. And I don't hear back from them. So.
Yeah, that is super difficult. I mean, cold calls, especially like that, when you have a really busy, is it just the beverage manager that you're talking to, or just the cold case manager? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I try to find either the dairy buyer or the perishables buyer. And sometimes I'm calling the store and saying, can you please tell me who that is, and asking to speak with them. So.
Right. Yeah, that's difficult. I mean, I'm curious to, are you visiting any of the stores, or do you have any at the top of your list, or is it more just kind of a shotgun approach as you're adding new accounts? Because you've already done some amazing work getting stood up in some of these
yes. So I have a list of our target stores, and I have them kind of ranked by which ones we feel like would be really beneficial to get into. I put a little more effort into those, and these are different times with COVID. We don't feel like it would be very welcome for us to walk in with our product, but a lot of the accounts that we have now were gotten just that way. Our owner that started the company would walk in with the fresh product and hand it to them and say, please taste this, you know, try this, you're going to love it. And, you know, it's a woman-owned business, and when she walks in with the product, I think people are charmed by that, and they're curious. They want to hear more about, you know, her success story, but we can't really do that right now. And so that you know, that's an issue for sure.
That's definitely like a hindrance for sure. I think that, you know, like since you have such a limited approach, you can't show them the product in that way anymore. If it like that, I think the advice I would give you, and you may have already beyond this, but is to just check out the cold case. So for instance, this is me yesterday walking at the Berkeley Organic Market in Delhi. I was just walking my neighborhood thinking about your product. And I was like looking at, you know, for instance, these cold case, I just saw like, wow, these guys are clearly like, yeah, have a deal with Forager. Seems locked up through whatever distributor they're doing. And then, you know, they have hardly any alt dairy at all. I see at the bottom part of the cold case there, this Califia, which is another major brand. And then, you know, on the dry shelf, they've got all national brands there too. So I was just thinking, wow, even this hyper specialty, small square footage store, there seems to be, you know, like not an opportunity at all, it's just interesting, like how limited some of these guys can be. So yeah, I think the advice I would give for sure is like to get a sense of the cold case for the stores that you were not able to like give fresh product in. And then in your email, you know, it's like we've gone over, instead of giving like a really long, you know, all the information that you think they might need, to say, you know, give basically like a comp and say what you just told me, which I think is super compelling. Like, hey, at Good Earth Market, we're selling out 2 deliveries per week of these 2 SKUs. These are the 2 SKUs I'd like to offer you. And then if you can get them to bite on even just 1 or 2 SKUs, then you can start talking about the other ones and get the seasonal ones going in particular. I'm not sure how much that resonates with your current sales strategy, but I know these phone calls are such an uphill battle.
I'm open to advice, and that sounds great. That is something that I've wanted to tell them, you know, hey, we're selling out at a farmer's market right near you, or at these grocery stores. And but trying to decide which information is most important has been difficult. And so I appreciate what you've said about, you know, really figure out what's important to the store, because, you know, we want them to know that we're a woman-owned business. We want them to know that we source locally. We want them to know that we package in glass, that it's, you know, we want them to know, we think all of these things are great selling points and so important. And so it's like, which one do I say first? And I like what you're saying about, you know, let them know that we're selling out at Good Earth, because I haven't tried that one. So
yeah, I mean, that's something that would be compelling to me. Like when I would get cold calls, for instance, like the brand Sunwing, which is a woman-owned specialty beverage in San Francisco. I had never heard of them. But their cold call to me was really good. They said, you know, women-owned business. We're selling out at these farmers markets. It's actually a very similar product to you, just in a slightly different beverage category. They had like specialty glass bottles. And so they messaged women-owned business. They messaged where their current sales were, and then offered to get on the phone. It was like basically like a 1, 2, 3, not too long. And then they came and met us at the office like right after that, and gently pushed for that. So it was really effective for me because when I see a lot of information, that my eyes start glazing over. So I think yes, like women-owned business, other sales, and then just focusing on just the top 2 SKUs you want to offer them, honestly. Because once you can get them to bite on 1 or 2 of them, then you can start going into like all the other amazing stuff that you have. But when people offer me too many SKUs at once, it's really hard for me, because a lot of times, you know, for instance, at Imperfect, if I'm talking to a new supplier, I've got room for 1 SKU from them. And then if that one does well, then I can justify adding, you know, another one and another one and another one. But I really want to laser in on what's the one thing that I can try, especially if, like, you know, if I'm going outside of like my current distributor, because at Imperfect, for instance, or even at Beber to an extent, I always had like one primary distributor that was like my risk management one, and I would try little SKUs from them, and it was like very low risk to me. But if I'm setting up a direct relationship, that's like a whole, you know, onboarding process, and I just want to focus on what might actually work. So, that's the thing. Any other questions on that, or anything else I can get on?
I do have 2 questions for you. So you mentioned a moment ago that, you know, someone sent you a really effective email and that it mentioned those few things and then it got you on the phone. Did they request the phone call or did
They
you?
did. They
They
did.
did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then my second question for you is, any advice for getting into larger grocers? So for example, we've really wanted to get into 515 market, which I think is a smaller specialty market that's a branch off of maybe, I can't remember right now, but it's a branch off of one of the larger grocery chains. And they have their own onboarding process, so you don't have to go through the full corporate procedure for the larger parent company. But do you have any recommendations for getting their attention? These bigger companies, you know, like we feel like we could get into specialty Safeways, like regional Safeways, or the other large grocery stores that have, you know, regional buyers, say like the Safeway in San Rafael, in say like that I'm blanking on the town right now, but you know, that area, San Rafael, has very it has a clientele that can afford a specialty product. And so those grocery stores purchase for those, you know, those products and those clients. How do we get those, the attention of those bigger grocery stores when they're receiving thousands of applications online?
Yeah. I'm thinking about my friend Vicky, who used to work in, you know, like mega regional sourcing for Safeway. And I know that she worked in perishables. I know that like juggling, I'm trying to think of, especially because of the 6-day shelf life, I think is going to be your biggest barrier for that one. I think if they really liked your product and a buyer was really engaged, they might even ask you to change the format or something like that, or like going away from glass, which I know is a big selling point for you guys. So that would be a tough one. I think a pretty uphill battle, but it's hard to. Are you in any Whole Foods at all? I know that they've changed their sourcing too from national.
We are not in Whole Foods, but we would like to be. We've been working with Unique Food Solutions. Are you familiar with that company?
Yeah.
Okay. They're encouraging us to go towards UV pasteurization. So we're doing a little R&D with them, and that could possibly help us get into Whole Foods, but we haven't really started that conversation yet. But of course, that's where we want it to go. So yeah.
That's, I think, very, very wise advice. You're just going to have to change something about, the production and shelf life in order to get into those stores. So it's almost like you might have to just fork off, because I love the idea of having you be just like hyper specialty, short shelf life for like that ultra specialty customer. And then for someone who, it's like a slightly different customer, you got to give a slightly different product. But that I think is the key to scaling to these larger stores. So I think that's pretty wise. And then what for your co-packer right now, it's contracted out, I assume, right?
No, actually they're very, very local to us, and they manufacture their chai, right here in the same town that we're in. So we just buy the bulk, or I'm sorry, it might be the other way around. We send them bulk almond milk, and then let me see, how does that work? No, no, we get their bulk chai, and then we blend it with the milk and we package here. But they're
yeah, that's really cool. So I can almost see like in the future 2 supply chains, because I imagine you probably can't get like a crazy amount of throughput. For instance, if you were to get a big order from Safeway, your current system, right?
Well, we are currently in production only 3 days a week.
Oh, so you have lots of capacity then.
So we do have some time in our schedule and in our facility that we could up our production.
That's amazing. Okay, cool. So yeah, I definitely see some opportunity that's great that you're not already maxed out. Okay, and then I'll think too a little bit more on that, and then I can follow up with you if I have any more ideas on the regional stuff. But any last questions before we move on? I really appreciate you sharing your case study, Alicia.
No, thank you. You've given us some really good advice too, and it also helps to just feel like we're kind of on the right track. So thank you.
It feels that way to me for sure. Yeah, I'm thinking through the right questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. Okay, let's move on to Uhuru. Bakri, I see you there. Maureen, are you here too?
Yeah, I'm here too.
Great. Okay. Let me get this right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to these questions that I asked Alicia. Could you guys break down for me what you sell? Where do you currently sell? Give me a little sense of quantities and price point, and then we can go from there.
Well, right now we sell similar to what Alicia was talking about earlier. We have a very fresh product. We do source locally as much as we can. Majority of our sourcing is locally. Very fresh products. Our shelf life is similar of about a week with our fresh pies. Our production capacity is nowhere near it needs to be, but we can basically put out up to 1,000 pies a day, if needed. We are nowhere near that capacity right now. We're about to head into our annual holiday pie campaign, which we do several thousand pies over the holidays. But right now we do a farmer's market in Oakland on a regular. We're looking for a second market, at least, to pivot from the COVID. And we currently have a few wholesale accounts. I think we have about 3 or 4 and all of them in the Bay Area, but I think some in San Francisco. And then we have one in Sacramento. We have basically been doing a lot of cold calls and reaching out to places like Safeway. But just in terms of what we currently sell, we have sweet potato pie, we have blackberry pie, we have vegan sweet potato, apple, chocolate, bourbon pecan, and pumpkin pie. And the primary is 9 inches, but we also sell 5-inch pies as well. And we're, pivoting in terms of the, what am I trying to say? The containers, because we have them in boxes right now with a little cellophane top. But what we want to do is have like an all cellophane packaging, which shows much more. It's like our boxes now hide the pie when we see them on the shelves in the store. So, but that's one of the challenges. And anyway, I'll leave it at that. I know you asked some more questions.
Yeah, okay, that's super helpful to understand. The cellophane, it's all, so it'd be kind of more visible, but also more exposed, a little bit less protected, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been looking for clam shells, which a lot of companies are now using, and we cannot find one that fits our 5-inch pie. They come in a 6-inch. We can get the 9-inch ones, but the 5-inch are the ones that a lot of stores want, So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how much does a 9-inch pie go for? Like, say, the sweet potato or the bourbon pecan?
Well, the sweet potatoes are 20 is our price, and the chocolate pecans are 20. I mean, the chocolate pecans are 30, and the pecans are 24, and 22 for our apple. And I forgot what it was for the blackberry. I think that's 24 as well.
So 20 to 30 bucks, and then the 5 inches, more like in the $15 range, I imagine.
They're all $10. Which,
$10. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we do have a 4-inch as well, but we want to try to get away from those, and those are $5.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And then, so what are your main challenges with getting new sales accounts? Is it, do people, the price point is pretty steep. I've had your sweet potato pie before. The quality is excellent. But I imagine that some people maybe balk a little bit at that price point. Is that normally what you encounter?
There are times we encounter that, but what's interesting is actually we've done some comparison with what's out there in the market for selling pies, and ours are not the top of the line. Some people sell pies $30, $40 and do quite well. So, we feel that ours, comparatively speaking, are middle of the road. But we hear that at times, but, we pretty much maintain, we pretty much, I think our prices are reasonable for the market that we've been selling to and the base that we have had over the years. But yeah, we have run into people, speaking to the amount that they have to pay for it.
Okay, well, that's helpful for me to know that it's actually like a pretty reasonable place in the mix. Okay, let's go into this imperfect case study just because I'm really curious about how it shook out, and then we can sort of dig in to some of the inside info I have and maybe help you with a repitch. Okay, so can you guys just maybe give me a summary of how that went and what the communication was so far?
Yeah, so we had met with Alyssa. I think you probably know her. So we had a 3-pronged strategy with them, actually. So one thing is Imperfect has donated to our holiday campaign for, I think, 2 years, and also sent a team to volunteer. They particularly donate the apples that we get. Last year they donated all the apples. With COVID, there's some changing. So we had wanted to have a meeting with them to say, can we take this relationship to the next level and have our pies in your boxes this holiday season, as well as just checking in on the donations for the season, given COVID-19, and possibly also some cross promotion. You know, like who they are and who we are, doing a webinar, things like that.
Yeah.
So we only talked to Alyssa, and she was going to put us in touch with the buyer, but instead came right back, and she was like the person who talked to the buyer instead of putting us in touch with the buyer, which was actually my greatest fear, that would happen, you know, like the gatekeeper kind of thing, you know. And so we never got to talk to the buyer because they just said not this year, but maybe next year. And that's all we know. So we don't know if they already chose a pie for the holidays or they're not doing it or whatever. We thought we would be a good fit. The product would fit in the boxes. I get a box almost every week, so I can, you know, attest to that. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely both a 9-inch and a 5-inch would fit in the boxes you're saying. Yeah, I think that probably the holdup, I'm imagining the conversation that Alyssa had with the buying team, which is my former team on the grocery side. So the buyer that you would most likely be put in touch with would be, well, it depends. So one of the sticking points with Imperfect is that there's always like drama over which category things go in. So for instance, like this might be categorized as a bakery item, in which case it would go to a different buyer, Caroline. But Caroline definitely is caught up with too many big projects and would say no to it. So it's possible that Alyssa went to Caroline and Caroline said, you know, I'm really busy handling this inventory crisis. But if it got routed to Andrea, who does like the more hyper-local products, she would be 100% on board. And I'm not sure if they mentioned a buyer name to you, but Andrea would definitely be the better contact. The other thing to note is that Imperfect, you know, the CEO and the VPs recently set an internal metric, internal policy that they need to source for more Black-owned businesses. And produce has really fallen short on that one, just because they don't have many Black growers in their supply chain. So basically all the burden has fallen on the grocery team to pick up the slack, essentially. So that is a point of leverage as well for you guys if you circle back. I mean, obviously they should know you're a Black-owned business by now based on the fact that there's already this existing relationship. But I'm curious if like perhaps it's picking up a little bit, because I know that there's no way that they've met that metric by now. And
I mean, I don't see it in I don't see it in my box. I don't see it when I go to pick my product.
You're shopping, you're like,
where are they? You know.
Exactly.
And that was one of the things Alyssa said. Oh, it would be so great to tell your story with all the little stories on the site.
Yeah, I know that. Like, from the conversations I'm having, they definitely haven't made enough headway in that area at all. So I don't see why they wouldn't go with you for a win-win there. And then, yeah, so it's interesting that Alyssa stonewalled you on that one. I think also like maybe one of the gatekeeper thing, lost in translation things could be about the packaging. I know that like sometimes things get turned down sort of arbitrarily by the food safety team there. Like if they say like, give me a product sample, and then he'll just try it out in the box without really having a full conversation with people. And then we'll say, no, like can't do this because it's not sturdy enough in the box, but not giving the supplier a chance to come back with a counter proposal. So that could be another possible sticking point. But I think that, yeah, maybe re-messaging, asking Alyssa to talk to Andrea in particular, who would be your best bet on the buying team, Andrea Fabry, and then basically trying like the approach of saying like, let's do one SKU, let me know if there's any packaging things, but like, let's get this out for the holiday. We're willing to partner with you on like basically like any marketing things you need, because it's a Black-owned business and it's a super seasonal holiday product. But that is the tack that I would take, if that is helpful at all. But I think those are the couple crucial pieces of information. Like, focusing on one or two SKUs, emphasizing that it could be like a tryout relationship, and Frambach is really hesitant about taking on risk with onboarding suppliers. And then another piece of information you should know is that the onboarding process for new vendors has gotten way more complicated there. They added a new onboarding system through Salesforce that makes the approval process a little bit longer, and now finance has to approve any new vendors. So as long as you stay on top of them about it, it moves through, but it's a lot more arduous than it used to be.
Great. So Alyssa left. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. At least a month ago. So
maybe reaching out to Andrea directly, and I can give you your contact information.
great. That would be good.
No problem.
The other thing is we did have a connection with Safeway. We had gone into an Andronico's in San Francisco, and they actually put us in touch with the buyer in wherever they are in the East Bay. And then she came back with 3 questions after months. You know, no, we've been in touch on and off, but the questions were, do you have the codes, you know, CPU codes?
UPC codes.
UPC codes. And then she had an issue with the margin. Our margin is 28%. And she's like, we're used to more 40 to 50 or something like that. And then the third thing was she just said, oh, I don't know if it's a fit for our stores. But just like Alicia was saying, you know, they have those specialty stores, the community markets and things like that. I do think it's a fit there. So we made an error because the person responded, said, nope, we don't have the UPC codes, and didn't say anything about the margin. And that was something you talked about last week, which was talk about the margin.
Absolutely.
And I know that we don't have to give everybody the same margin. So so we want to be able to circle back to them, because I do think it's a fit in like their community store in Berkeley, or, you know, Andronico's or that.
Definitely high fit. Yeah. So I think that's a great plan of action. Like circle back and say like, hey, just wanted to say like it's holiday time. We would love to try this out with you. We think it's a great fit. And like, you know, we should have like maybe like a baby acknowledgement. Like, I think we missed an opportunity to talk about margin or work with you on margin. Because it makes sense that you want to like have a good like, you know, price alignment or margin alignment in these community stores. That's interesting that they take such a 40 to 50 on bakery. I didn't know that. Yeah, and you're right. I think it's really great that you guys are willing to be flexible in order to get out in the market to like have different price points at different markets. I think that is really smart, because then you can see what sticks, and then you can eventually get to a more uniform place over time. I think that is very wise. Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds great. And then what was the other issue that they had? You said it was
the UPC codes.
UPC, yeah. Are you guys able to work with them on that, do you think?
So we were looking at what it would take to get them, and I'm still confused about it, because I thought that you have to pay for your company code for retail distribution and then get the numbers. Getting the numbers themselves, I know for online distribution is not as hard as for actually like a POS thing. So, so we don't really have all the details we need on that. So. Okay. we have a possible budget, because my understanding was that it's actually rather expensive to get them. Is that true?
Does anyone else have any information or resources on that process on the call? I've only done it for private label products, and it was pretty easy, but I know it's different.
Yeah, hi, this is Sadi from Marine Gourmet.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi guys, how you doing?
All right.
It's actually not too expensive, and I wouldn't get too caught up in the 2 different sets if you should get one for online or one for the other. Just go online and buy a nice batch set, buy it local. Don't buy it from a reseller. That's really the key, because the resellers break it down, and then later on, if you want to expand, you won't be able to do that. Buy your own block. If I remember right, when we got ours a few years back, they were probably maybe about $100, $200, and that was it. And then that gave us like 10, 15 numbers, and they fall right after each other. And your buyers will prefer that, because they can sequence you that way. So just try to find a block that you can buy from a direct buyer and not from a reseller online.
Great, thanks, Adi.
Thanks, Adi. That's awesome of you to share.
We know your crew at Grand Lake, so Maria, yeah.
We eat your pies on Sundays.
Love it. Okay, awesome. Any other questions or concerns, Uhuru team?
I think that covered it for me.
That's helpful. Thanks, Heather. And I'll look forward to that contact information.
Yes, I'll give you Andrea's contact information. She should be good for you. Okay, great. All right, we wrapped up slightly ahead of schedule today, but that'll leave time for Q&A if we'd like. Basically, next steps, this is the last in the little mini series that we had, but just like last time, Miana's gonna share an email with the slides and then a request for evaluation on this one. And then long-term, as I mentioned, Kitchen Table Advisors is building out this market access program. And right now it's focused on farmers, but I'm also maybe working with CAF a little bit on other products or product categories like dry goods, value-added, things like that. So if you're interested in learning about programming that would be paid for by outside funders to support small producers like you, just stay in touch, email me, and then I can keep you apprised of any other upcoming other programs and content to support guys like you. So there's that. And then Liana, is there anything else you wanted to add before we go into Q&A?
I would just add, in addition to those opportunities Heather said might be coming up, AIM will be sending out more information about future webinars. And again, if you have specific content areas where you'd like to learn more, just reach out to me, Liana at agriculturalinstitute.org, and let me know what technical assistance you could use right now. And that's always sort of an open invitation. So yeah.
Cool. I think with that, we can open it up to Q&A.
If anyone has a question, a follow-up, or thinking about specific challenges in your own business and how you're trying to reach out, now is a good time. You can go ahead and unmute, and it's a small group, so go ahead and unmute and ask if you have something you're wondering about right now.
I did have a question of Heather. We were at the Young Museum last year. We had a wholesale account with them right before COVID hit. And I noticed that, when we interacted with them, they were trying to reach out to the broader community and reach out in a way to more of a grassroots base, whereas we know the Young Museum is more of this affluent kind of place over there in Golden Gate Park. And I noticed, I live near the Young Museum, Oakland Museum of California in Oakland. And they have a real grassroots. They have, like, every Friday, they have these food trucks. They're under construction right now, but they have a much deeper base in terms of people and the relationship to the community. And I would just want to know, have you seen a shift similar to that, where you've seen some of these larger, more affluent institutions reaching out to work with the communities, in the communities themselves, with different businesses? Because I saw an attempt from the Young, but I see it already actually occurring in Oakland with the Oakland Museum of California. And I just want to know if you see any trends like that happening, in other food type corporations reaching down into the community.
It's interesting to try and keep an eye on, I think, in this region. I've heard of some, like, my friends in New York have told me that shift is definitely trying to happen. And I think there's basically a lot going on in New York in terms of, like, reaching down into the community, like you're saying. Out here, I feel like larger, like, sort of offbeat, affluent things like the DeYoung Museum, which has, a little bit of a sourcing budget, but they maybe work with just one distributor. It's interesting, and I think it's really positive that they're trying to make a shift, but I'm going to look into that more, because I haven't thought about that specific type of, like, institutional angle, but I think it could be yeah, it could be a good one. What I'm seeing a lot more of is tech kitchens, like employee tech kitchens, like trying to figure out like, where do I do with this extra food budget that I haven't spent? And I think that's one I'm trying to keep an eye on. We talked a little bit about that last time. Some of them are spending some of their unspent budget into like community food box programs. And I know that they're going to be looking for places to spend the money, maybe a little bit more, put a positive PR spin on it when like people start eventually coming back into offices, if they ever do. So yeah, two things for me to keep my eye on. I think that, yeah, thank you for the tip on that one, basically, but I haven't seen anything specific in that area.
Thank you.
So the food buyer at DeYoung was McCall's. I don't know. And so, but we had a relationship through one of their, what do you call the person who picks the art, so.
The curator or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Procurer.
Procurer, yeah.
No, there's a technical term for me. And I work at Oracle, actually, and you had mentioned Bon Appetit.
Yeah.
But they seem to have their own baked goods pretty much, so we haven't been able to break through on that. So. Yeah,
Bon Appetit has their own contract manufacturer for all baking categories. It's pretty annoying. Yeah, contract bakeries are a tough one. At Blue Apron, it was always a constant battle because I had so much pressure to use a large contract manufacturer for baking, and I was able to find regional ones in each of our 3 markets across the country. But it's difficult for a producer at your scale to sort of break in and scale up when that like sort of middle market is very captured.
Well, at Oracle, they have their actual own bakery there.
Oh, wow, they have their in-house. That's cool. It's not a good brief of it.
Yeah, so we haven't been able to break through that. And that's like 15,000 people, that they feed. Oh my God. And the bakery's actually very good.
That's good.
But the people aren't in the offices right now, correct?
Right.
That's the other
I had a question for the bakery group. Is there something that differentiates that it's an ethnic baking group? If people don't see you at the farmer's market and are just walking into the store, is there how would you know that this baked good is baked by an ethnic group rather than it's a commercial group?
So we have a label that says who we are and what the mission is. So building an independent African economy. And we've recently started putting like a side label on the boxes that says Buy Black Power.
Yeah, because the ones that I've gotten, I didn't, maybe that I didn't get the one with the label, but I couldn't differentiate between if it was a minority baker or just a regular baker that made that. So maybe I didn't get the one with the label on it.
Yeah, the labels we've just started doing with the Buy Black Power, along with some other things, like say with the packaging as well. But that is a recent development with the Buy Black Power. But we've always put out in our branding, that it's a Black community-based project. And that's where the resources go, and that's what it's led by. So that's always been a part of the branding of Uhuru.
Usually when you buy the pie, and my team, when they eat your pies, we just tear the thing quickly and eat it. So your label, the one that'll differentiate it, I think will be better. We did the same thing a while back. We put a big gluten-free label, and then the gluten-free community realized it was gluten-free, even though we had it in our ingredients, but because it was bigger, we noticed that. So if you're able to attach that label to most your other products and that says you're a minority group, I think that'll definitely help you in Marin County.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. That was good advice about the labeling. We have some products that are vegan and some products that are not, but I really want to try to get the attention of the vegan consumers and let them know, hey, this product is for you. But I don't think it's clear unless they really dig in and read the label. So that was great advice. I think we need a big vegan sticker on the side of our products that are vegan.
Yeah, if you're a buyer that supports that category, gluten, vegan, minority, as soon as you see that label, you focus more that you're satisfying that need, and it's less about do I need hummus or do I not need it? Or the fact that it's gluten free, I need to get it. So it brings more of a concentration to your purchasing.
Maureen, I wanted to share with you that we recently had a relationship with the Airbnb offices in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to suggest to you that you try to reach out to them when they have their employees back in office. Right now, they do not have their employees in office, but they had a program where they were bringing in small businesses, foods, and then they were paying for a tasting for all of their employees. And I believe they have 400 or 500 employees, 200 on one campus and maybe 200 on another campus. And they paid us to come in and just serve our product to their employees so that they could try something new on it seemed kind of like a social gathering, kind of team bonding kind of experience, but they wanted, food products to have to share with their staff on those days. So that might be something that would be a good outlet for you guys.
It's a great tip, Alicia. Airbnb really stands out as their culinary team is very principled and values driven and very committed and knowledgeable about the regional food system scene. As they used to be a self-operated employee kitchen, and then they eventually contracted to Bon Appetit. But unlike other places that have contracted with food service management companies like that, they were very forceful about their contract with Bon Appetit and wrote in that they wanted higher local sourcing standards and a higher budget in their Bon Appetit contract that other places have. So instead of just taking Bon Appetit's cookie cutter sourcing standards, they really were very strong about imposing their own, and that's been able to help them preserve relationships with, like Feed Sonoma and Cape Valley Farm Shop and other very food hub quarantine places. Alicia, that is a great tip to share. I think they would be super open to that.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, Heather, we had spoken about timing for building these relationships and knowing that employees are not back in the office, but you had mentioned that it's good to get a head start on that. Do you want to speak to the timing?
Yes. One of the examples I just mentioned a bit ago about these tech kitchens having unspent food budgets, they still have their jobs, and are kind of looking around and maybe not willing to commit to something or do like any sampling and stuff, but it's good to just sort of reach out to them now because they are open to figuring out how they're going to get employees engaged when they get back in the office. So I know some of them are, again, spending their budgets right now on like community food box programs and donations and things, but as those things come in, they don't really have any active contracts right now. So it's a little bit of an open field. So in some places, unfortunately, have closed, like Thumbtack laid off their whole thing. Palantir, I think, is still holding on to some of their staff. Airbnb, like Alicia said, Salesforce is going to be doing some reorganizing on theirs. They've been focusing a lot on external community support, but as their stuff comes back online, they've really recommitted to local and regional stuff too. So there are opportunities in tech kitchens, but it's again an open field. So if you would like some contacts or intros, I'm happy to help provide those too. Just shoot me an email.
Thank you.
Yeah, we would like to get those. Salesforce actually gave Black Star Industries that owns Uhuru Pies a grant during their business day.
Yeah, they've been doing really well with community stuff during COVID at least. So I'm glad to hear that.
Are there any other questions right now for Heather or other participants? It's a lot of information and a lot to think about, I'm sure.
This is a more general question for Liana about the webinar series. sometimes I have people ask me questions about, how we started our business and, how we began and how we got into the farmers markets. And I wanted to maybe recommend that as a possible webinar. People, don't know like what permits they need, what the regulations are of the markets, what kind of kitchen they have to be allowed in. And, I get questions like that a lot from small businesses that are starting up. And I just wanted to recommend that kind of base knowledge of how do you get started at a farmer's market as a possible webinar.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we will be, that's a great suggestion. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? It's, yeah. Great, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Uhuru Foods and Pies and Beber Almondmilk for sharing your stories and talking through your cases today with Heather. It's so helpful for everyone to hear your experiences and your openness to sharing, what you've tried and how it's gone. So thank you for taking the time today and just being open to share those stories. And thank you to Heather for sharing all of your knowledge. It's I don't know how many people there are out there who have the breadth of knowledge you have in this topic. So I really appreciate you sharing what you know and just being a resource for our small producers, because we need all of you, all of our farmers and food producers. We really appreciate you and depend on you. So we're really doing everything we can to help support you right now.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone for the really helpful energy in this group. Basically, it's really, really nice to hang out and just share tips and tricks and feel like we're in this together, for as strange as things are right now. So thank you, everyone. This is really fun.
Thank you, Heather.
Heather, do you want to go to the last slide, and then there's some contact information people can note down if you need to, and then you see our funding statement at the bottom. That this was funded by our grant from FMPP, the Farmers Market Promotion Program. And you see our grant number there. So thanks again for participating.
Leonie, what period of time was that grant for? I was just curious. I remember when you got it last year.
Yeah, so the start date was December 1st, 2019, and it'll go through 2022.
It's 3 years, okay. Yeah.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So more to come. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited to be able to do this work. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you all next time, and look for an email from me with the slides following up and a link to the recording if you'd like to revisit.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.